Welcome everyone listening to our playback. This is our event, My Life, My Business, and Wish I Was Here. And we've been wishing I was here for as longest time as we started this event. So by now, after listening and maybe following us and listening to our playbacks and published recordings, is that you definitely feel far more engaged in your life than when we started out, nearly more than nearly 2.5 years ago. So a special welcome to my co-host, Shanaaz, and today we are going to obviously be feasting at her feet, as it were, as she delivers her topic of choice. Shanaaz, over to you.
That had me I was having a bit of a giggle at your choice of words. So I was going to say, the I guess the pressure is on. But yeah, you did have me laughing a bit here the side about at my feet. Right, let me get on with it. So last week you kind of did the session with me, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to be my client. so um what I'm going to be talking about this evening is I'm going to be just talking a little bit around attachment. For those, I think that maybe last year I spoke about intimacy and attachment and how that happens. But I wanted to talk specifically today around attachment in the workplace. And just so that everyone knows what attachment is. So, generally, in the field of child welfare, in the field of psychologists use it as well. There is this theory called attachment theory, and it was founded, or sort of based on the work by John Bowlby. Is very well known in sort of child psychology, and just working with children. But they've also developed adult attachment styles, and they are using it very successfully with leaders and teams. And I just thought that I would kind of discuss this a little bit about how you can use it in your workplace, and then kind of I'll sort of say how when I sort of start to think about my own attachment style, then and how that plays out in the workplace. And I can actually, as I was preparing for this, I can actually see how it affects me. So firstly, just what is attachment really? So attachment is and it's also particularly it's a helpful way to understand relationships, and it's also based on a lot of evidence. There's a lot of research on this, so it's in a sense quite trustworthy. But it has been criticized a bit, but I'll talk about that at the end. So it can really help you understand relationships in the workplace, but also in your personal, your personal relationships. So, broadly speaking, it was developed to obviously help parents understand the relationship with their children, and address any particularly traumatic situations or challenges, right? And what it also kind of helps us, they've developed adult attachment styles. So it also helps us to understand our own relationships as adults. But the thing that's really interesting, not only for adults but for children, it's really helpful when you apply it to the learning experience. So learning in the classroom, and I think that that is why it translates very nicely to the work to the workplace. So according to attachment theory, as adults, we are often going to respond to the adult figures in our life according to our attachment style. right? And there are three main types of attachment styles that many of us will fall under. And we'll also respond to children in that way, and others are those we are attached to, so your significant other or people who are particularly important to you. You could also be responding to your colleagues this way, or particularly if you are team leader, you're responding to them in this particular way. Or if you are, it's really helpful if you're a team leader to understand your team's attachment style. So and they say because this significantly affects your relationship. And I can tell you, I did this and I was thinking about my relationships and in my team and myself, and then I could see my attachment style coming through. So I'm going to read a couple of statements that is going to help you understand what type of attachment style you have. So I'm going to listen to it, and then decide um, which one mainly describes you, right? So the first one I'm going to call out is the avoidant. So what this is, I'm going to read out statements. I am somewhat uncomfortable being close to others. I find it difficult to trust them completely, difficult to allow myself to depend on them. I am nervous when anyone gets too close, and often others want me to be more intimate than I feel comfortable being. I'm going to read it again. So, this is the avoidant type. I am somewhat uncomfortable being close to others. I find it difficult to trust them completely, difficult to allow myself to depend on them. I am nervous when anyone gets too close, and often others want me to be more intimate than I feel comfortable being. Right, so that's avoidant. Then we have the anxious. It can be seen as resistant or ambivalent. It can be a combination of both. So I find that others are reluctant to get as close as I would like. I often worry that my partner doesn't really love me or won't want to stay with me. I want to get very close to my partner, and this sometimes scares people away. Then the other one is, let me read that again, because sometimes so this is the anxious one. It can also be a combination of anxious, resistant, or ambivalent, they call it. And it's I find that others are reluctant to get as close as I would like. I often worry that my partner doesn't really love me or won't want to stay with me. I want to get very close to my partner, and this sometimes scares people away. So that's your anxious, resistant, ambivalent type. Then there is the secure type. So now we can be a combination of either avoidant and secure, or we can be anxious and secure as well. I'll explain how it works after this. So the secure is, I find it relatively easy to get close to others, and I'm comfortable depending on them and having them depend on me. I don't worry about being abandoned or about someone getting too close to me. Right, so those are your kind of your main three that's very useful. And then what they talk about is that there's also sort of the disorganized type. But we won't talk about the disorganized type today, but generally we fall under those three. Now what tends to happen, you need to kind of choose one that sounds a little like you. And ideally we want to be the secure type. So I'll read the secure type, and what you find is that people who are relatively together, you will be generally secure. But here's the trick: when you are under stress or you're experiencing a challenging time, we will revert to our default, which is either avoidant or anxious, right? So, but generally, we will be the secure type, which is I find it relatively easy to get close to others, and I'm comfortable depending on them and having them depend on me. I don't worry about being abandoned or about someone getting too close to me. So I guess generally that's the space that we want to be in. But life comes with its curves and everything kind of happens. And then what you actually find is when we under stress, then we tend to revert back to some of our childhood type attachment styles, or not childhood type, but we will go back to being avoidant or being anxious, etc. So how does this then affect the workplace? So what they actually found is that when you if you can then identify the which one you are. So I just want to see if I've got a discussion of the, oh, I found the disorganized one. So they actually find, so this person can be, the disorganized type is a combination of all three. And what they say is it's usually when there's been particularly traumatic or dysfunctional past relationships, and they generally exhibit a lack of empathy and disregard for rules. They are unable to accept emotional closeness, and they may be quite argumentative and have difficulty controlling their emotions. So generally what you find, obviously in my practice when it comes to children, I do find that I work with a lot of disorganized children. But when it comes to adults, we tend to be avoidant, anxious, or secure. So, why this is important is what I found this really good article in the Forbes magazine, and where they've actually been using attachment theory. And so, what the author says, it's Nelly Alcap as a name. She says that the secret to developing more yeah, communicative and collaborative partnerships and a cohesive team is when you understand what attachment style you are. And so, what they talk about then is that it's obviously about building lasting psychological connectiveness. Now, when we have those secure attachment styles, when we are feeling safe, when we are feeling connected, and to each other, and we are feeling secure, what tends to happen is we do our best work. We're able to attend to the task that is at hand. But when we are under stress and we default to our either anxious type or avoidant or disorganized, then certain behaviors will come out. So I'm going to read to you. In the workplace, anxious people, so the um, anxious attachment style, they say that these people worry about rejection and tend to need ongoing reassurance that everything is okay. They're very tuned into other people's moods and may take others' behaviors or words too personally. They can be highly emotional, and these individuals may have trouble adhering to personal boundaries. They may exhibit a tendency to create or capitalize on conflict to facilitate connections with others. So, in my workplace, how I see this pitch up, and now that I'm aware of it, is that many of my students come across. Now the thing is, because my default type is avoidant, so this doesn't help the anxious types. The students who come to me, I respond avoidantly, and what happens in turn is, because they are anxious, they want to cling. And the more they want to cling to me, the more I want to avoid them. And so it creates the cycle. So that's how it shows up in my place. And I've had to learn that I am dealing with students, I'm dealing with people sometimes who are anxiously attached. That's the attachment style. And it's about how can I, as a leader, as a teacher, work with the attachment style so that I am not becoming stressed and going into my style, then, and mine is, as I said, avoidant, and so that I don't end up being stressed out and being angry and dismissive with him, right? So I'm just giving you just an example of how it shows up. So the avoidant type, right? So this is my default, unfortunately, and there's no right or wrong type. What tends to happen is that when you become aware of your type, whether you are a leader or whether you form part of a team, once you're aware of your type, attachment type, as well as the others, what you're going to find is that you're going to work according to those styles, and it will make life a little bit easier. So the avoidant type is, they say that signs of this style in people include emotional detachment and a preference to work alone. Avoidant individuals do not like to talk about feelings, and they keep others at arm's length to avoid intimacy and conflict. Exuding a cool, calm, and collected demeanor, people with a strong avoidant attachment style may be highly effective in crisis situations. So, you may not be all of those things to that. We have degrees in which you are like that, but I definitely know that I am avoidant. So now you can understand when my students come to me, and I've had to work with particular people. And I think last week there were two issues that I laid before Jacques, and the one was I'm struggling with one person in a team, and what I have discovered is that that person is actually anxiously attached. So she has an anxious attachment style, which again creates this needing me to avoid and be dismissive. And what I have to admit is that because I go into this kind of, I have this kind of attachment style. When I'm stressed at work, then I tend to be dismissive. And my students do have complained about that. So I'm going to be aware then that because I'm like that, and it also explains my need to not always get involved in the staff room parties and discussions that happen. So I tend to, and now it kind of makes me completely understand the why I generally avoid certain social situations. Right. But I think that I need to, how I'm going to work with this, in other words, is I'm going to be aware that because of my avoidance style, what they have actually found, and I've read up about this, is that the avoidance style will avoid trying to get involved in tasks also, and they'll just watch the others take it on. I do take on tasks at work, but I think when I'm engaging with students or others who are avoidant, I will keep that in mind, that you can find that they may not want to engage with the task, they may not want to engage with the team, and it's about like working according to what is going to work for them. So then, um so those are the things, and then just the way a secure type kind of shows up in the workplace, and generally we will be like this. Secure individuals display empathy, trust, tolerance of differences, and a willingness to collaborate and compromise. They manage their emotions well and react reasonably in conflicts and adverse situations. A strong, secure attachment style feels comfortable with getting close to others without worrying about rejection or abandonment. And so, what they actually say, if secure was on a menu, that's the one you would choose, right? But as I said, generally we will be secure, but there are times when it's under stressful situations, we will actually go into the different types, our default type. what they suggesting is that we need to kind of when we become aware of our predominant style, we can also kind of check your thoughts in a meeting. So like you can actually pause, and you can think of, but I want to be engaged in a way that is secure here. And then you can literally stop yourself, when I'm starting to avoid, that team meeting, or I'm not wanting to go certain places, or when my team does something, I can think, no, but I am securely attached, so I'm not afraid of getting involved here in doing things. I'm securely attached, so I'm not going to be dismissive with my student. I'm going to engage in a way that I'm very comfortable with people around me being anxious. I don't have to be anxious, and I can engage with that. And so, what you also then want to do is you want to draw this out of others. And so in other words, when you're aware that that person is feeling anxious, you want to respond in a way that is secure. You want to be available for them. You want to, when you understand why they're responding that way, then as a leader, you can provide, and they call it that secure base. You can be that secure base where you're not going to respond according to your default style, either avoidant or anxious as well. So you can imagine if there's several people who are anxious on the team, they actually do need someone who is going to manage the team effectively. Otherwise, we're all going to be reacting in different ways. So, what they say is like build your self confidence, whether you're part of a team or the team leader. Engage in positive self talk, think about your own talents and strengths, and you'll be able to better control, your responses to others. And this, I see this play out in relationships also. Similarly, you'll find that the couples who get together, the one will be the clingy type and the one will be the avoidant type. So the more the one wants to cling, the more the other one wants to avoid. So that running away from the relationship, and then they become more, the other one becomes more clingy. So you can actually see this play out in the workplace as well. What they also suggest that we do is that we keep an open door policy, and know that anyone can come to you with their problems without fearing judgment or apathy. And this is really important. If you are working with anxiously attached people, then it's really important, because they will need reassurance all the time. And then it's important that they feel that they can come with you, and that you then think about that you do need to offer positive feedback and encouragement. And this is then going to help them trust themselves, and it's going to also avoid knee jerk and emotional responses, where we revert back to our styles. Another thing is that to also kind of focus on taking breaks. um, when you have a team where there is a lot of different types, or there's a particular dominant anxious type, or you under stress, what will happen is everyone's default attachment style will come out. And that's really when you need a break from each other, and then to kind of regroup. And so they say that when you're feeling frustrated with the problem or the person, rather than going into that reactive mode, it's really just a time for you to process what's going on, that they are responding, you are reacting to their attachment style. And so think about, and when I'm saying this, so I like to use the analogy of the children. So what I found is that some moms become stressful when the child has a tantrum. You see this happening in the shops. The little toddler is screaming and shouting. What happens is some parents, they become embarrassed, they actually revert into their own attachment style, and they start shouting back at the child. Or some parents will kind of slap the child on their bottom, or I've seen some awful things. That is classic when we are reacting to when someone's attachment style is triggering our own. And while we don't necessarily see this in the workplace, it does happen. And so the idea is that you want to calmly collaborate with each other and you want to resolve the situation. And so you do want to separate from each other and the team. So I'm against that. And so literally I would be against, where we are sorting out a problem at work and no one is leaving until we resolve the situation or we get it sorted out. That's not always going to work, because everyone's different attachment style will be triggered. And what you then want to do is you just want to provide a space for everyone to kind of, think about, um, particularly the leader, think about their personal attachment style, so that they can engage to meet the needs of the others. And what they say is that, really we want to create successful teams. We want to bring out the best in our colleagues. We also want them to feel secure. And for some of our colleagues, they may not have had that kind of parenting. And so it's going to be a challenge for them. And that is why you, as the leader, need to see to it that you are tuned into your secure attachment style often. So that's me.
Be tuned in, you say.
Yeah. And it's
Uh,
like literally emotional attunement. And when I talk about it, I use the example. And so if you can think of it in that way. So when I'm teaching this to my students, I talk about, when there's a baby crying, a mom, like if it's an attuned mom, the mom will know, is that a distress cry? Is that a hungry cry? Is that a I need to change the diaper or nappy cry? And so, as leaders, and when we are engaging with and trying to collaborate with others, we need to think that response, and if I'm attuned to what's going on in the team and to my colleagues or to my students, I need to know this coming back and forth is because they are anxious. It's not that they want to work on my nerves, they're just anxious. This not wanting to engage is avoidance. This And so even in a meeting, when we're collaborating with others, we can become aware of people's attachment, and then we present ourselves as secure, and that will facilitate the other person usually feeling more secure also. Yeah.
so yeah, so I think in a nutshell, the good news is that there is the default behavior, obviously, which is the unconscious behaviors that we default into, and but knowing that you can choose your type. It's like, I don't know if it's situational, but that requires a level of self awareness, isn't it? Despite
Yeah,
the
I was
way
going
you
to
would,
say.
yeah, despite the way you would naturally feel, or you have an inclination for. You're saying is tune into the attachment style of secure, being the secure type style. It is interesting to me that when you tune into the secure type, or when you are even defaulting, if that's even possible, to the secure type, then you are able to deal with the avoidant and the anxious ambivalent. It's interesting. It's like, you know what? I'm put off by anxiety either in people or in my pets. So I can only then surmise that I default to the avoidance style because of that.
Yeah, and so that is similar to me as well. And so I get irritated. So I don't respond appropriately sometimes. And it kind of explains. But what I wanted to say is that this amazing thing about like how the attachment style works is that you can work through and become securely attached, and it takes reflection and it takes attunement and that self awareness. and so that's kind of some of the work that you do. And in the attachment theorists, they call it mentalizing. So where you like thinking about thinking.
Mentalizing. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So
But I mean, look, the bottom line is as different people will get different nuggets from what you shared. Shanaaz was brilliant. Is for me, in instance, like, well, if I want to calmly collaborate, if I don't want to be phased by how somebody else is showing up, but I want to focus on what's the main thing, the principal thing, the most important thing, then the mentalizing and the emotional attunement and adopting the secure style is the functional. It's for functional engagement, understanding that there's a value in it. Um, there's a prize at the end for the effort, the conscious choice.
yeah, absolutely. And so for me, I mean, I was just got so much insight now into my behavior. The team that I'm part of had some issues in the past when I joined it, and so I was very on hype. I was hyper vigilant and hyper alert that I don't get involved with any of that. And I think that with COVID, what it's made me is, I think that the team is kind of settled in now, and it's time that I'm aware that I'm still in that stage, but the team has actually moved on, and I need to become aware now. Now I'm becoming avoidant, and is it necessary? The team is safe, I can start to relax and engage with them, and I don't have to avoid them now. So I am going to need to work on feeling secure and feeling safe so that I can engage more. And I think for anyone, I think that particularly people who are starting new jobs, that you may feel you may be in that default attachment style when you start a new job, and it's good to kind of think of it in that way.
Yeah,
Sorry
great
for going
content.
on.
No, great content and very practical. Is to become aware, and obviously with all of these things, and not to fall into a place of judgment and condemn yourself. No, just be aware of the fact that these default styles are basically in operation, and I guess the bottom line question is, how does it serve you or limit you in that instance? And then knowing you can choose.
Yeah,
Obviously, you got to practice to choose
yeah,
and work your way into these things. So yeah, fantastic,
yeah.
Shanaaz. Thank you.
A pleasure. Thank you,
All
Jacques.
right,
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Goodbye for
Bye.
now.